maybe test where Parukia is. I don't think his Nico has been quite as solid, even though he is a quite aggressive player, especially in lane. Getting rid of the Rumble, something that obviously they don't want to get away for ZDZ, but what is going to be the focus? We came into these playoffs, we're on 25-17. What was going to happen with the jungle situation? Are we going to get a little bit more experimentation from mid lane? Wukong is a champion that has really risen in priority. We have that plus like things like Vi and even the Pantheon already through this draft.
Some teams are even putting the Qiyana priority much higher. I don't know if it's going to be happening between Xiaohao and Xun. I know that Xiaohao demonstrated his first Silas jungle performance against IG. Not really anything to write home about or be excited about. That was unfortunately a way Zed masterclass and kind of dumpster him. But JDG do answer with the Pantheon and Yunara pickup. Both very powerful picks here in the early stages of the game. EDG, what is their response?
Wow. So these are two champions that are so interesting because I look back at JDG's last series and they were always willing on blue and even on red side to ban Pantheon and Yunara, champions that they had been getting access to during the regular season but really didn't find all that much success. The EDG though, I think they got a very strong combination already. Jarvan plus Orianna, one of the champions that IG never lets Xiaohao get in the Jarvan. I think this is perfect when we're talking about giving EDG clean and simple ways to play games.
There's a lot of smiles from the EDG roster there, almost goofy grins as they're just kind of amazed. Wow, we got this pick for ourselves? Let's go! The Game 1 draft is already looking pretty baller as you have a nice shockwave delivery system onto a couple members if you catch them with the Cataclysm. Corki, pretty reliable AD carry pick, is locked in here for On.
Just means that they're going to have the ability to skirmish in the laning phase and then get into mid-game and just start poking away at their opponents. One way that you can get around Yunara is abusing her 575 range. Corki obviously with his phosphorus bombs and the big missiles, so Kali gives them backline access. It seems like JDG might just be trying to forego having a sturdy enough front line and instead just have the Pantheon dive forward, kind of have a mixed bag of who's in front, who's in back, and try to lose EDG in that sauce. Support picks are going to be so impactful. I like the Poppy mention. Does mean that things like Alistar or things at Rel and Nautilus start to gain a little bit more priority here. So wonder what that is going to be looking like for JDG considering they do have first pick coming after this.
I went back through the champions played for Scout this split. This is technically his first Akali of split 3. We know that he's played it in the past, but it is a very interesting sign of potentially some things to come for JDG. I like how you mentioned they're seemingly foregoing a traditional frontline front-to-back style composition. They're just trying to opt in for the full dive into On.
You know what this means, though? We're going to have to see how the laning phase goes for Scout, because this could be a matchup where he could be very, very abusive towards Angel, but as we've seen, Scout has been a bit of a player that we don't know if we're getting Jekyll or Hyde on the day here. So 5 support player bans. We're getting Alistar, Rakan, Rel, Poppy, even Nico. Like, is there going to be a 6th? This is a big question coming into this series with both Duo and Parukia. What were they going to look like once we got off those engaged champions? Because that has been basically their bread and butter all season long.
Now, the support pool has been heavily diminished when it comes to engage power. Nautilus has been the #1 pick for Parukia this split so far. Curious to see if JDG will try and snipe that away from him, forcing him to play something like a Leona instead, which he only has 1 game so far in the split. Otherwise, EDG, because they already have engage power with that Jarvan, could go something more defensive with the Braum, but this is now Xiaoxu locking in the Scion for the top lane.
All right, a couple questions here. This could be Gwen top lane in response to the Scion. You could also try to take the Aatrox, the Ambessa. Those are AD options. I think the Aatrox would probably be the biggest fit for ZDZ. The Ambessa, I think thematically is probably the best for their team. But EDG are going to try and dive in onto multiple members. This could be a situation where it's not even like that very simple like dive strategy, but instead we're just trying to burst one member. We're going to have Jarvan ulting onto an Akali, forcing out her spells or the Yunara. The Nautilus ult is going to do the same, and obviously there with a Orianna to boot does make it a little bit more simple for you to be able to play. Space control in this game I think does go over to the favor of EDG. They just have more buttons and a little bit more HP that they can play with once they get a few more items that I just don't know if JDG are going to be able to do if they don't have Xiaoxu on the Scion there.
I think the one caveat that JDG will have in their back pocket is how hard they're able to pressure EDG into making mistakes based on the way they posture and the way they position around them. If you get EDG feeling antsy and they blow their cooldowns way too fast, then there's nothing that stops the threats from JDG from being able to just dive straight into the backline. I'm curious what Zhuo decides to lock in here.
Right.
I would have been a little bit more skeptical if it was the Braum. I like the Leona. This gives a little bit more engage power to aid with both Scout and Shun's desire to dive the backline.
It just means they also are just dealing more damage, right? Sunlight passive is there. It will test Angel, because if Angel doesn't have flash, imagine in a mid-game scenario we're doing that standoff around objectives with Redemption being such a massive influence in these fights. Utilizing that Eclipse, utilizing the ultimate from the Solar Flare, you could just check, hey, does enemy mid have flash? If yes, then he should just dodge this ability, and now we're going to be up a summoner spell going into this fight. But very important to watch. With a Scion, we're expecting a swap at some point in this game. How do EDG get early dragons? How do they push the tempo versus their opponents?
Gonna all depend on how much attention Xiaohao is paying to his bot lane this game. We know that Pantheon, with the recent nerfs and the drop in priority from LPL teams across the board, have recognized if they don't get accelerated with this champion, his fall off is even more punishable than before. But in the hands of someone like Shun, if he is playing at his peak, he can completely take over the game before EDG even have a chance to stabilize. We'll have to see how it all unfolds here.
It's going to be tough. I think for JDG, they do have windows. There's going to be a big spike around 1 and 2 items for both of these teams. Personally, I prefer EDGs as we go further, but still a lot for them to play, especially on side lanes. And going to be an exciting one. Remember, last one out. Whoever loses this match tonight no longer has potential in 2025.
This is the first step towards what could be the last series for one of these teams tonight. And there are chances for a World's run ending alongside it. It's JDG taking on EDG in Game 1. Let's hit Summoner's Rift.
They don't want to do the crowd cam because it was a little empty in that arena.
maybe you'll fill out once we get to Game 2 or Game 3, especially if it starts tying up, you know?
Yeah, exactly. If we get to Game 5, I imagine we're gonna at least have a few more stragglers in the audience. EDG and Xiaohao trying to get some early vision spot outs shown on the top side of the map. Gonna be important to watch, especially from JDG's perspective.
Parukia should be fine here.
Whoa,
no
Jesus.
Aftershock on either of these supports, but wow, Zhuo is actually popping the Summoner heal just for the movement speed to try and get extra damage onto Parukia right before the laning phase starts. I mean, Parukia is now down 200 HP. I don't know if this is that big of a detriment, though, for EDG. You're the bot lane expert.
Yeah, I mean, they still have heal for Parukia, so I think the HP trade is fine. Obviously, we're still waiting about 5.5 minutes before we get to, or 4.5 minutes before we get to the Summoner Spellbook, but should be advantage towards JDG.
A lot of aggressive trading. Peyz is already forced to pop the barrier. This is multiple Summoner spells being used by JDG's bot lane, but On still has Xiaohao right now. Flash available.
He just early invaded. He went for a blue buff, went right into top side. He knows that Shun is on his Krugs, but he's gonna have to forego an entire camp.
I don't know if that really works out for Xiaohao's benefit because he was just a little too late on the collapse there. It's not necessarily something that we haven't seen before from Xiaohao. We've seen him pull these invades off, like with the Trundle into Vi matchup specifically, but unfortunately for him, like you said, he doesn't find Shun on the right timing, so now he's overall down a camp and behind that level 3 and level 4 timing compared to Shun.
For Xiaohao, I think this will probably have more ramifications as we get a little bit further into the game, especially around those first grub spawns, because that'll be around the time when our junglers will be hitting level 6, so it'll be interesting to see how and if Xiaohao actually gets behind, or if this is more of a stopgap measure to make sure that they get that information that they need for their bottom lane, which is Shun's going to be moving down around the 3.5 minute mark. We should be expecting him. And we're starting to maybe see that swap here for JDG. Xiaoxu's also recalling.
I think you're right, Alk. TP already coming in proactively from Xiaoxu to catch that wave on the bottom side of the map. ZDZ now realizing that maybe a swap has occurred and he's going to have to take a base, just being a little late. Not sure how much that will punish him in the end. As we pointed out before, Xun did not get deterred by the evade by Xiaohao, so is able to finish his full clear on time for this bottom Scuttle Crab. Meanwhile, Xiaohao still behind the pace when it comes to clearing out his full side of the jungle. He's still not level 4 yet. Maybe he'll hit it off of this Scuttle Crab, but he is so significantly far behind XP. But maybe it might not matter if EDG can force a play on a barrierless Peyz.
Trying to move in through mid, so Xun gets bottom side Scuttle, so it's going to be the trade. It's going to be some fine damage here. I mean, Xiaohao, he's only down a camp here, right? Like, that was the trade that we saw from him. Just making sure that he's hitting his timers. His wolves in his bottom lane are going to respawn a little bit quicker than his top side. It seems like they were angling for a dive, but when you're the jungler, you're like, guys, I need to clear. Like, I need to make sure that I'm level 6, win that first grub spawn, just to make sure that we have the right amount of impact here. And honestly, we look just away from the jungle, we look across the lanes, everybody's pretty even for the most part, so I don't think EDG are necessarily squeezing their advantage, but especially in that mid lane matchup, the more Angel gets to farm up and get closer to finishing things like the Seraphs, does make it a little harder for Scout to deal with.
And to relay that advantage back into the jungle conversation, while Xiaohao doesn't necessarily find Xun on the invade to go find a camp advantage, I think the goal is just to track Xun. Meanwhile, Joel is getting very aggressive, trying to set up Xun for a gank onto the top side, looking for the movement speed from that empowered E. Assault looks for Parukia, gets him before he gets a chance to flash away, and that is first blood for Xun.
Heal was going to come up, but they knew On had both of his summoner spells really well traded there by JDG. Means that in 3 minutes time, Parukia will still have his flash, but this should hopefully open up a timer for them to either make a roam, get their recalls, and get some gold. Xiao's going to move into the bottom side, probably only steal himself a single camp here. Seems all right. That's exactly what I think we wanted to see from EDG, and thankfully for JDG, they're actually able to find something on the opposite side.
As we talked about before during the draft, Pantheon does not have the same scaling power as Jarvan does. And that might seem like a weird caveat to exclaim, but it's just the fact that Cataclysm will always be a useful and powerful tool, no matter what state of the game it is for the Jarvan. Whereas Pantheon, you've got one point-and-click stun and a global tool, but that's it. And if you're not tanky enough, you're not threatening enough, EDG can simply ignore him or just blow him up upon entry. So the fact that Xun is able to find a little bit of an advantage here could be the start of that JDG snowball that they are looking for.
Peyz also going for the call, has great interactions with Yunara as a whole, and does mean that there's going to be a small advantage opened up. It's going to be Parukia first walking into the river to gain all control, and with Xun pathing down, I don't know if we'll even see a fight for these grubs. A minute and a half before they spawn, you're going to have a very strong AD carry in this Yunara ready to rock around this dragon. I feel like with Pantheon, and maybe you can correct me, I feel like versus a Cloud Drake, you can get away with a little bit more and try to take it early.
You definitely have decent monster damage off of the spam ability of your Q. You have max percentage HP damage off of your empowered W, so you could look for it, but I think JDG are showing a lot more priority and just seeing ways they can make the early laning phase a bit more volatile in favor of JDG so that EDG don't get a free pass into the scaling factor.
So Xun's going to finish his red buff. He's also going to get his Krugs. I want to see what happens. So he finishes red buff. I think he should be able to hit level 6 off of doing his Krugs. He's been angling like he wants to go top to maybe open up an angle here for Xiaoxu. Getting some pretty decent damage, and he's going to have that teleport soon as this Scion. So maybe there's an angle here for Xun to look top lane and
close.
Get themselves a timer. Scout's even starting to make his move over.
Peyz and Joel rotating early over to mid lane. Scout already getting a base off and just walking top lane, but it doesn't look like JDG are going to pull the trigger for the collapse onto top lane just yet, unless it's not with Xiaoxu. It's with Scout and Xun working together, which at their peaks throughout the year here in 2025, JDG found the most success when Xun and Scout are able to link together early and get that snowball rolling. So far, ZDZ doesn't fall for the bait yet. Scout just pushes him out of lane.
All right, we're contesting these grubs, it seems like, because Xiaoxu's going to pick up this bottom lane wave. Oh, wait. Defeat?
Huh. So Angel popped the shockwave on a Leona that popped her W, so didn't get that much damage on top of it. I'm not sure if that increases EDG's chances of being able to secure these grubs.
I think it makes it much more difficult for them because now they don't have a real ability.
Oh! He dodged the solar flare by pulling Zhuo in with the dredge line. Now the fight erupts here. Here comes Xiaoxu from downtown with the unstoppable onslaught, but everyone from EDG flashes over the wall. Decimating smash slows down Parukia, but not enough to get him in range for JDG to sink their fangs into. EDG get one kill cleanly out, and everyone escapes.
EDG being last to this play makes it so difficult. ZDZ.
Public execution into dredge line. Xiaoxu is caught with his pants down. Shun is forced to use the Grand Starfall just to get back in there, but now ZDZ is able to flash back to safety, but Scout falls off the perfect execution. Peyz goes in, flying forward, looking for more kills, and JDG come to life, being able to drop kills one after another. It's only On and Angel that are left in the aftermath, but JDG find their moment, and this could be the snowball they were looking for.
I cannot wait to look at this replay because it's going to open up so much here for JDG. Shun is going to try to start up these... brother, we cannot take these.
Shun-chan, please.
You get one. You get one, basically. Do not... If you die to this, we're going to be laughing at you. Please don't make me do this. Gets the Comet Spear. There's all the healing. And from EDG's perspective, why are we trying to contest on the top side? On was incredibly late to this play. Recalling way too... Like... Look at where they are. So Sion gets an entire wave on the bottom side of the map here. Sion's going to ult into this play to start. And the thing that I'm kind of watching from this perspective is that we don't have buttons to play. There's no ultimate for Parukia. We don't have ultimate onto On either. So we're just down levels, down gold, and we're missing experience across the map. This is a huge win coming in for JDG.
I like the gumption from EDG, but I think JDG were just as puzzled as we were when ZDZ sprung the ultimate, going back in and saying, do these guys realize we have not used our ultimates yet? We can just pounce on these guys for free.
That could have been the play, but they don't have very many options to do it through, so was only a two grubs going over to JDG. They'll be able to finish this topside camp. Xiaohao being a little too creative. I think that they didn't have enough timers, and they didn't even go for the dragon on the trade, so JDG just win everything to get the first 3 kills, first 4 kills of the game now, and maybe they try to look for Angel on side lane here. It's Scout and Zhuo. Zhuo still has teleport, so even if he shows up on this side of the map, he can very easily show up on another part.
Yeah. For EDG, remember the setup to that fight started with Angel just burning his shockwave on a Zhuo that wasn't really threatened. Just imagine if EDG think through their setup a little bit better and maybe are able to use all of their buttons on the target that they actually want to be able to play for in that fight. JDG now up around 2,000 gold as a result of the aftermath of both these skirmishes here. We've got still first dragon, because neither team has really gone for this objective yet. But the feat of warfare was secured for JDG as a result of that topside fight.
I've got to say here, Mark, like, I pull up the minimap, and if I'm JDG, I'm saying, okay, cool, I get push in mid here, I get push on bottom lane wave. What exactly is On doing? Some of these recalls are coming in way too late for his team to play, and it's creating an issue now where JDG get the first dragon of the game. This should have been where EDG, we have a Corki and Nautilus lane. How are we not fighting in the early game and getting ourselves an advantage? How as Jarvan and Orianna is our first combination where Orianna doesn't have a shockwave to play with. JDG are correctly punishing their opponents and open up what is going to feel like 2,500 to 3,000 gold difference.
I'm also just looking at Angel's itemization for this game, and this is a very scaling build. He's going for Rod of Ages into Seraphs. Neither of these items have been fully completed yet. It's just components, and now ZDZ. No flash from the prior fight. Public execution at least dances out of the solar flare, but the unstoppable onslaught still locks him down, and that's another kill on the board for JDG.
And now Xiaoxu gets even further ahead. 3 grubs. He's going to probably take at least 2 turret plates if he really deems so, because no one from EDG is here. They're pushing off of mid and then, going in the bottom side jungle and getting Xiaohao's Raptors? He spent a large portion of this game already trying to get an enemy jungle, seeing where Shun is, but no camps to steal and no information really utilized upon. EDG feel a little bit lost after we've been praising them for what has been a rather clean set of games in Group Nirvana.
Seemed like EDG just pulled the trigger when they didn't need to, when the rest of their composition wasn't fully online or ready to capitalize on their peaks in this game yet. Now EDG have to pay repercussions for it, and JDG are the ones now reaping the benefits of accelerating against the curve, first items pretty much on every carry across the board. And Shun is now looking for a pick with Zwo, who flashes on top of Parukia and ensures that even with the Dredge line, there's nowhere to go. Shun now 3-0-1 on the Pantheon.
That is an incredibly good setup, because now Shun gets to take jungle camps, he gets the kill as well, and his lanes get to feast all over these waves. JDG looks so put together, but what did we say in that BLG series? It was the same thing. Those first two games looked incredible, but can they close out the series? We'll have to find out. So a lot of League of Legends to play here tonight.
EDG are going to have to hold on and wait for their scaling to really kick in, especially since JDG find themselves almost 5,000 gold ahead of the curve. This advantage is enough for some of the best teams in Group Ascend to just pretty much win the game off of.
Yeah,
However,
EDG.
Dimitri...
What's up? What's up?
JDG, sometimes in their mid-game success, get a little too crazy with it, and the inconsistencies can plague them. So we'll have to see if JDG can polish things up here.
EDG were leading the league in first blood percentage, dragon percentage, and gold difference at 15, but I think the difference is that Group Nirvana, it's just not as tough as Ascend, so we need to see if EDG can bounce back, and can JDG close this out, because this is 4,000 gold. We're going to have 2-item Peyz before that next dragon, and if we keep going at this rate with Shun getting more kills, maybe even second item on junglers, I don't think EDG have time to fight right now. They're going to need to scale, finish some more of these item completions, and maybe pray that on 3rd and 4th Drake that we have a chance here.
Yeah, there is a stark difference between a Pantheon that is going even and eventually falls off later the game goes on versus a Pantheon that is ahead of the curve and has 2 items before everyone else has pretty much finished their tier 2 boots. Black Cleaver Sunder Sky is a very durable and still very threatening champion for JDG's jungler here. Now, the second dragon gonna be spawning in the next minute and a half here. Rift Herald ready for the taking. JDG might look to secure it here before setting up vision on the bottom side of the map.
Okay, Scout's gonna clear a single ward. What I love about this JDG composition is with Peyz sitting around mid lane and with Shun doing the same, it allows for Scout to push in this top side, for Xiaoxu to do the same. Herald's gonna be started up here for JDG. EDG not really in a spot to even contest here.
Zwo is the bodyguard alongside Peyz. Scout flanking on the left side. Looks for Angel. Clean execution on the combo, but the shockwave forces him out as the depth charge will follow Scout to the very bitter end. Unstoppable onslaught from Xiaoxu. Gets the knock up onto the front line. Xiaohao trying to flash over to the right, but he's got no damage follow up on that side of the fight. But Shun is already at 50% HP, so is Xiaoxu. Peyz is running out on the transcendent state, and EDG have the numbers advantage. They're pushing forward. ZVZ lunging forward into the backline as he slices and dices in that Drake Wolfhound stance, but not enough damage. Finds Peyz into the backline as On goes down swinging. Parukia now gets jumped by Shun, and it's the jungler for JDG that saves the day.
It is 10-3, and honestly, Raafaa, that is a great team fight here for JDG. We're doing an Angel?
There's no flash for Angel. Shun knows that he's got enough HP to set it up. No, Shun!
No!
He misses the Comet Spear, but it doesn't matter. That's the Shun special right there.
Remember last time we saw Shun cancel an auto attack and not get a kill? That was tough to watch. We do it again here, but this time does end up finishing that one. Grabs that kill onto Angel, and what did we say coming into this fight? Why, EDG? Why are we looking for these engagements here? We can't be walking blind in this situation. CDC kind of saved this entire play by finding the pick onto Scout, but more of a situation where I think EDG need to slow the game down. They need to not be taking these fights. On is trying to squeeze damage. Yeah, that's one.
Hey, that's nice for EDG. That's an objective bounty picked up, but Scout has teleported into the left flank. Now looking for On. Perfect execution for the first cast. Into the shuriken backflip. Doesn't even need the second cast to finish him off. JDG now have a chance to reposition and set up for the second dragon of the game.
Shun has all of his camps to do. I don't think we're going to be looking for a dragon immediately. This is a good punish. Xiaohao has to stay to help his mid laner catch this next wave. Zhuo's actually sitting in between the turrets here, which I think is incredibly funny. Xiaoxu, oh god, oh, we're doing this.
It's a trap! Xiaoxu, run! There's no flash, and the Cataclysm locks him down into the baby cage. Xiaoxu pops the Soul Furnace for the shield, but they know his fate is written in the stone, and ZDZ gets the shutdown.
But that was Peyz picking up mid lane turret. How much more can EDG actually get from this? Because look, while they're doing this, while they're pushing this wave and getting Angel this goal, Peyz, Transcendent Form has to use it to get over the wall. Scout is going to pick up a turret on the bot side, so this is going to be more gold being funneled into JDG.
I mean, EDG, if they want to force a fight, they know that Scout cannot join since there's no teleport, but he's caught under the towers. EDG is forced to flash. Big three-man shockwave, but there's not much damage behind it. Zhuo is still alive. Here comes the Rift Herald from Xiaohao. Should be able to at least crash open this tier 1 turret. Another objective bounty goes into the pockets of EDG. Dredgeline misses as it is a flash used, and the rest of JDG are able to escape.
Peyz doesn't pick up another kill, but Scout 3 grubs, and he gets 2 waves on bottom side and a turret and a half. I have to imagine that that is exactly what JDG wanted, and an okay trade from them. Look at the advantages in some of these lanes. Xiaoxu is up 30 CS, and same for his 80 carry. This is a winning state here for JDG, and these are the 2 carries we came into tonight that we are so excited about, Xiaoxu and Peyz.
These guys, when they are locked in, have been so big for this squad in Split 3. In a world where, series after series, we have come to expect disappointment and struggles from this squad that should have been aiming higher ever since this roster was first put together at the beginning of the year. But obviously, Xiaoxu was not part of that roster at the time. His joining on this roster at the beginning of Split 3 has been the biggest surprise for this team so far.
It's been so fun to watch Xiaoxu play, and it comes off of really great bruiser play. His Cassante and Renekton, I think, are incredible. He's really started to add rumble as we've gotten closer into playoffs, and even his tank play. The only reason I don't like tank play is I think it gets rid of a little bit of agency for him in some of these fights, where JDG might find themselves down a few thousand gold and kind of want a big player on a big game kind of champion. So good to see there, and man in the jungle, Xun's been getting work done here in this first game, and a player that so far maligned and, you know, dropped multiple times by his former org, kind of seeing if he can remake himself, reinvent himself here on JDG.
This year has been the quest of vindication for Xun. Ever since he was dropped by BLG, they have gone through their own journey of swapping out junglers in their own carousel between way early on, then Beichuan, then having Shadow come in while Beichuan was on the bench. Now Beichuan's back in, and it looks like BLG are in the best form yet. It would mean the world for Xun to have another chance to try and fight his way with JDG either to Worlds or at least against BLG to prove himself against the org that left him.
You can see right now that EDG, they're trying to prep this mid lane wave. Angel walks into that top side, gets the plant, or he gets the control ward. Because EDG, I think they recognize that this game is not getting easier for them, and if they can get a little bit of experience, they might feel a bit stronger about their position in this game. ZDZ took a recall. He's going to walk bot, but has teleport for this play. And because JDG still have their mid-tier 1, it is significantly easier for them to get control of this mid lane and just jump right into Fog of War, make it difficult for EDG to track their opponents.
JDG right now have the vision advantage on this entire top side map. There's only one lone control ward in that tri-bush near the top lane. But if JDG are able to sniff it out, then it will be complete darkness here from JDG, as now they start to rip the Otacon.
Okay, Xiaohao's not going to be able to teleport, at least for now. He's going to take control of mid lane wave. GG have not been spotted here. Maybe that Demacian standard spotted them right before the ward comes in from Parukia. Scout not seen yet. A lot of important summoner spells up and available.
Unstoppable Onslaught splits up EDG. Parukia on the top side, but On is able to get away from the engage. Depth Charge now right on top of the tank for JDG, but the rest of JDG are burning down the Otacon. Big Solar Flare stops Xiaohao for now, but they're not able to hold the line, and now they drop the Otacon. It's at 3k HP. EDG could rip this and try and see if they can steal it away from JDG. Xun can he be a hero? It's Xiaohao that steals the Otacon right under the noses of JDG. The collapse comes in. Xun is dropped, and EDG have sprung to life in game 1 of the series.
Wow, that is an incredible take, but JDG so sloppy there. Xiaoxu walks forward thinking that he's gonna maybe use his ultimate to force Xiaohao out of the pit. Angel, does he get 1v1 underneath the turret? I mean, Peyz loses his flash, still had barrier. That experience now gonna feel a little bit easier here for EDG, but that doesn't bring them out of the game. Still 3,000 gold down, and Angel's about to hit he just got his last level here from Rod of Ages, so oh no, not before the dragon.
Shuriken backflip, but the nice knock up into the dredge line. Scout gets caught out by EDG. The punishment is grand.
At least versus BLJ, we got 2 games before Scout started doing this. Are we going to get it here in game number 1? JDG have held a 5,000 gold lead throughout this game. And we come into this fight, and we're talking, okay, can they find anything? The public execution doesn't land onto Shun. Shun is still alive when it gets down. 900 damage. And I'm watching Peyz just try to unleash, but there's no threat from the Sakali. There is no threat from this front line as Xiaoxu lost all of his HP before it to start.
And while we still have a minute before the next dragon, that smite by Xiaohao was the pro diff needed from EDG to be able to make the pivot here in game 1. And speaking of pro diff, if you want to get some one-on-one coaching with current or former pros from the LTA, NACL, or the ERLs, use the code LPL10 to save 10% on pro diff and schedule one-on-one today.
Dragon in 30 seconds, so important. No flash here for Peyz. Same thing here for Xiaohao though. And how either of these teams get into the pit, I think it is so important that JDG still have this mid-tier 1 to help them push, but Scout needs to get this wave in on bottom side, get it a little bit further and into EDG side of the map. Now getting the teleport out from Xiaoxu. This is going to be them late to entering the river. It's going to be complete darkness as they walk in. It will be Dragon Soul Point if JDG can secure it.
Just considering how EDG were able to claw back from nearly a 5,000 gold deficit. Now they're in striking range, much more comfortable. 2 item spikes have been hit here for majority of EDG carries. Rest of JDG trying to see if they can get through the bottom tri-bush. Scout on the bottom flank here. Public execution into the back. Peyz is compromised. The barriers pop, and he's firing still. The rest of JDG hold the front line strong enough for their back line to survive. Dredge line from Parukia continuing the fight on the Xiaoxu. Angel and On can still carry out the damage here. The rest of JDG have to reposition and they have to reposture. A recall comes in.
Teleport.
A teleport will come in for Zhuo to be able to rejoin the fight. EDG now on the wrong side of the map here. They're going to have to fight their way out. The only way out is forward. Zhuo flashes forward for On, gets the cleanse forced. And On is doing the best that he can to fire back with the Gatling gun and the missiles. Angel trying to hold his position here. No shockwave available. The slow from Peyz connects. On is forced to flash away. They're trying to look for the blast cone to get back to safety. Parukia is going to give his life to save his AD carry, but On still might be in range. They land another slow, and Xiaoxu cleans it up for JDG.
Man, EDG just take the win and back off. We have this dragon that's not going to be going over, and Scout wasn't able to do much in that fight afterwards, but I've got to say, Raafaa, I'm quite disappointed in what we're getting here from EDG. Feels like we were trying to do a little too much on one side of the map. We were going too far for some of these angles. If they had just gotten their win and backed off, that could have been them resetting and dangling JDG around this objective. This is a good start. The amount of squeeze that they put down onto Peyz, that public execution, but no knockup from Xiaohao, I think is the massive difference, forcing him over the wall, and Scout gets taken down. Those are potentially 2 kills that they could have had. This gets a little dangerous because I think Shun could have played with his life a little bit more and then use the ultimate to exit back in or entrance back in. And from here, we just got to walk out, guys. We cannot be split up. What is On doing? He's been so questionable here in this game number 1 that could end up breaking in favor of their opponents.
It seems like EDG were playing too much with their food there against JDG. As you called out, should have been content with the advantage that they got in and just looked for a chance to reset, but overplayed their hand. JDG climbing back up with that gold advantage here. Still haven't yet found 3 items for a majority, but it's only for Peyz. Solar Flare misses on the Xiaohao, forced out. Xiaoxu tries to follow up with the engage as well. The unstoppable onslaught. Shockwave forces Scout to flash upon entry with that teleport. Parukia re-engages, death charge into the backline. Peyz is knocked up briefly, still able to fire in the transcendent state. Big slow with the W. He's able to dash out over the wall. Dredgeline snags Xiaoxu as he tries to look for the blast cone as an escape route. Xiaohao finds the knock-up. Everyone's burning down Xiaoxu. Peyz is holding the right side flank, and the rest of JDG are trying to reposition and get their tank the hell out of there, but it's the flash from Parukia to guarantee the Dredgeline, and Xiaoxu has to be sacrificed. JDG lose on their front line, but what can EDG do here?
I like this from Peyz. Hit the mid wave, back out. He is so far ahead of his counterpart. 3,000 gold, almost 50 CS up on this Corki, and very close to hitting level 16. He'll hit it actually probably on this wave at the very least, and if not, the next one. That mid-tier one is doing so much work. EDG were not able to start up the Baron on spawn there 3 minutes afterwards. They would have won that fight, but if it was a little closer, maybe there's an angle for them to play. I gotta say, Raafaa, we're 3 minutes away now. Dragon Soul and JDG, despite it all, despite some of the mess-ups here in some of these fights, despite Xiaoxu and some of the crew getting caught, it feels like every time we come around this Dragon, EDG kind of lose their minds and lose their posture here in the game.
JDG have to thank Peyz for being the lone constant star that has remained deathless in this game one. Peyz now looking for his 4th item of the game, being able to use his gold advantage to be a threat himself, and you can see that EDG were not able to push through that choke point because Peyz is stepping up and being almost a deterrent himself. Angel forced to use the Zonias to dodge the solar flare. Xiaohao goes in, but he gets stunned upon entry. Cataclysm into Shockwave, massive damage on the Peyz, but he just dashes out of the baby cage. He's able to heal up. Public execution snags him! Angel follows up onto ZDZ as they breach the backline, and Peyz loses his first life in game 1. The rest of JDG have lost their star carry, and they are forced to retreat. Scout cannot save Shun. He's under fire under the tier 1 tower. ZDZ trying to follow through. Xiaohao flashes forward. Scout is able to get away, but EDG have found their mark, and Peyz is dropped.
Oh man, just the amount of abilities there missed by certain members of JDG. I mean, just looking at the redemption, Dro got it nowhere near Peyz. So Peyz saves his flash, goes down. Those are a ton of bounties going over to JDG. It swings the gold back in their favor. They get the 2 turrets in mid. They're going to get Baron, and they need to reset instantly, Raafaa. We don't care about these minion waves. It is up to JDG to fix them because we've got Dragon spawning in a minute, and that'll be Soul going over to them.
I'm so afraid to open my DMs because I might have just caster cursed JDG. I give
what is
praise to
Xiaoxu
Peyz,
doing?
and immediately he dies.
We talked about it in draft. If you don't have Flash as Angel, you're gonna get hit with that ultimate. Thankfully, he uses his Zonias to keep him alive, but look at the redemption. Such an important part of the support counter pick right now. It's over here. Where's Peyz? Not getting hit by it. It opens up a spot for ZDC, this dive and pick to find the 1 carry of JDG. And Xiaoxu on this Scion has been making way too many errors to make this, if they had a lot more gold to play with, you can do that, but there's a lot of damage here from this EDG composition. They've got Baron, they're going to use it, and now they set themselves up, push all these waves so they can play for the Dragon in 15.
And for the first time in this game one, EDG have the advantage over JDG in gold. This is so massive, and being able to hold posture and position to deny the Infernal Soul away from JDG. The Baron buff is forcing JDG solo laners to try and split up the map, answer back some of the waves to make sure that they are not losing so much free experience of gold on these side lanes. And now the Infernal Soul has been delayed by an extra 5 minutes.
I think EDG could have gone at least 1 more minion wave there, especially on mid. They were early to the objective, so they wanted to start it on spawn, rip it immediately, lose out on a fair amount of their Baron, considering how much time it took them to rotate from mid and from bottom lane. So there are some tools, I think, but we're going to be in a cooldown period here. And what an exciting game number 1 to this Group Nirvana versus Group Ascend, and one where very even across the board, but JDG have felt like they're a little bit 1 step ahead, and then they make a massive mistake, and they kind of have to rebuild from that point on.
And it's happened now twice here, Alk. First at the Otacon flow, then the catch on to Peyz. And in between both times, JDG have done a decent job of being able to claw back. But it's now EDG for the first time that have the momentum on their side. And with Baron buff for another minute, EDG can do some massive damage to the structures of JDG, further ballooning the gold lead they have.
Good look to try to force for something here. Xiaohao is not spotted, but is on the other side of the map. ZDZ does not have teleport, this would be an advantage going over to JDG if they can start a fight, find something. Peyz is stepping forward because he knows he has to be the one to be able to turn team fights now.
For the most part, Peyz has done a great job of being able to bait out cooldowns from EDG. He knows he has to do it again now that he has both Flash and Barrier and available to try and create opportunities for his teammates. But it was the thing that got him punished in that fight near the mid lane river. Now EDG are barreling through the base. They've already breached through inhibitor towers. The top inhibitor falls on continuing to push here. No threat from the side of JDG as they don't even want to take a chance of flubbing the base defense.
If they lose a single member, that could be the end of game number 1. He's gonna chase.
They're gonna
split.
send it. ZDZ, no public execution as he completely misses it, but the depth charge creates a lot of space. Shockwave, a lot of damage into the front line. Xiaohao commits forward, doesn't pop the Cataclysm yet. Scout now finds his moment, looks for the perfect execution, causing a lot of disruptions in the backline. Parukia's already been dropped, finds the Shuriken backflip, perfect execution, second cast, tries to flash away for the Cataclysm, but not enough as Angel drops him. But JDG do enough to defend the base from continuing to be sieged.
They save the mid lane inhibitor and Raafaa. What I am now going to be seeing is there are no flashes on Scout, Peyz, or On going into this Dragon in 2 minutes time. Massive timers for both of these teams, and if EDG want to be able to close this one out, they need to close this gold gap between their AD carries. Watch this fight one more time. It is split. ZDZ is completely apart from the rest of his team, tries to use the ultimate to buffer some of the crowd control, and this is a stall and delay tactic from EDG. We're going to use our Orianna ultimate to catch out some members. Scout is in the back line, and look at how uninhibited Peyz is. He is flying straight into Parukia and takes that trade every single day of the week. Getting those summoner spells, I think, is going to make or break this next fight.
And those are the fights that JDG need to find, where Scout is the one causing complete chaos in EDG's ranks and making them completely lose focus of the actual carry that can clean up the fights for JDG in Peyz's Yunara. The past couple of times there, JDG were disconnected, but they are able to make the base defense happen and live to see another day. We have Infernal Soul spawning once again in the next minute and a half, but with where the waves are, I don't know if JDG will have a chance to contest for it again.
I would just like to remind everybody that EDG are the one that got the Otacon. They have 50 Blood Roses right now, and On is the one that's down a level right now. He is almost 100 CS below his opponent. We're about to see Peyz Flame Horizon from the AD carry position. I think pretty rare for this day and age. JDG are going towards the top side of the map. They are hoovering up every last bit of gold so that Peyz can finish what is his last, his LDR item here. They're going to give him top lane wave, mid lane wave. It seems like they're also giving him Shun's Krugs here. So very important that he hits his 5th item as we step into what could be JDG Soul Part 2.
I think it is totally reasonable for JDG's Game 1 hopes to rest on the shoulders of Peyz. This guy came from Gen G when they got Ruler back into their lineup. Peyz had to make the most of himself in his debut year with the LPL. He has been one of the star carries for this lineup, hasn't always seen success as the org has struggled over the 2025 season. This series, remember, any team that loses here is completely eliminated for World's contention for 2025.
He's going to pick up another wave here. It's EDG first out of the map. Man, losing this top lane inhibitor is proving so detrimental for JDG, as it takes them a long time to be able to actually properly push this wave out and apply vision. So JDG are losing another dragon. That'll delay the soul that we've been talking about for a bit of time. This gives JDG, you know, the similar for their opponents, gives them time to pick up and finish their last 4th items here. But for EDG, now they can pressure on waves. They have this top lane wave that's always going to push. Bottom lane wave now pushing in for ZDZ. And they're going to look to make their way into mid lane and play for the Baron now.
As you called out, EDG are first to hit the wave on high in the mid lane. The rest of JDG doing what they can to try and occupy the spaces of the top side red quadrant here. They have some vision, but not all of it cleared out.
All of it, look, just complete darkness here. Shun is going to walk up by himself. There's a teleport now coming in from Akali. This should be the fight. Can EDG break JDG finally? It's going to now push them away from this. Oh, this is going to be such a fun, intense game. They got the teleport. I think that's
They're looking for
worthwhile
Shun. Oh, I thought Xiaohao was going to pull the trigger there. Shun still has a flash available, so he could easily escape the Cataclysm. But look, EDG are being patient. They know that they have super minions pouring in through the base of JDG on the top lane, so they can play a patient game. They can let JDG try and see whether they will respond to the pushing wave. They drop the Baron once again and wait for JDG to respond to what's happening to the base. As Xiaohao going in to looking at Jewel, the death charge is going to follow the Leona, but there's no real follow-up there as everyone else from EDG was trying to catch Shun. Jewel is able to flash away from the Dredge line. Decent amount of summoner spells burned by the members of JDG, but no one dies yet, so JDG still have a chance.
The inhibitor respawns topside. That gives them an angle. Got a little bit of damage down on the Xiaohao. Shun also loses his flash, can enter back into this pit. It is darkness yet again. Another teleport now from Zhuo. No solar flare. And honestly, all of JDG, they need to reconnect right now because they're spread.
Xiaohao and ZDC have GAs. They caught Xiaoxu, Zhuo, and Shun trying to find an angle to capitalize. Xiaoxu flashes out of the Cataclysm, but Zhuo has no flash from the previous fight, so he is dropped on. Whoa, that was crazy. He almost died for it. Forced to flash away. He ends up getting dropped by Scout in the end. He goes golden with the stasis, flashing away with the perfect execution. He's still alive, and Xiaohao's GA is burned. He is able to EQ away.
Peyz.
ZDC now pressing through the front line. The shockwave catches Peyz, and EDG find the heart of JDG and strike it out here in game one. Xiaohao is going to continue forward, finding Shun. That should be it, Alk. That should be game one for EDG.
Can Xiaoxu go and clear this wave? He's got a lot of HP to work with. They're teleporting into the top side. They've got a 3-minion wave here with a cannon on top. Only Scout to make it. Perfect execution is not on. EDG might have won this game one.
A back and forth bloodbath between EDG and JDG, able to save themselves in 2 clutch fights. Scout doing everything he can to try and save this one for JDG, but I don't think it's gonna happen. Game 1 goes to EDG.
Too many random mid-game fights, and I think the solo laners here of JDG really letting the team down. Xiaoxu thought that he had enough HP to play with, gets caught out before that fight multiple times throughout this game, and Scout, I think, not as much of a backline threat as we would have wanted to see. Remember, Shun starts this game off 6-0-3. Like, that should have been JDG's game to finish out, but too sloppy around objectives and individual members being, I think, a little lackadaisical.
The Otacon fight was the start of the downfall of JDG in that game 1. And even when they were able to recover, one too many mistakes ends up costing them in the end. And I don't even think that any particular individual was playing holistically terrible. It just clutch mistakes in the late game is just too punishing, and EDG were able to hold on long enough to be able to capitalize by the time when it mattered most.
It's tough to watch too because Peyz is trying his damnedest. I can't wait to see the post-game graphics for this game. Thinking about him trying to really utilize the fact that he has his teleport, or his flash, so stepping forward, getting his ultimate, and then dashing around fights. But the lockdown, I think ZDZ eventually kind of scaled into this monster that not a lot of people from GDG could deal with. And when you are playing Pantheon, Akali, and Leona, you're gonna have to just trade frontline. You need to get into that backline, cause disruption, but they were just never set up properly. I don't know what else to say for the JDG roster because they're supposed to come into playoffs with a clean slate. You got your 3-over LGD, you got your warm-up series going into that series. Like, I needed to see what this team looks like when they aren't swapping in multiple players, changing their coaching staff midway through the year twice. They needed time to gel, obviously, but this is the last stop here before their year is over.
And for EDG, it's not like we didn't have questions and concerns going into this series either, or we were without questions and concerns. But EDG were able to prove resilient long enough through the early game woes where JDG got the better of them. We know that there were some fights that EDG opted into that they probably shouldn't have, but they didn't get punished at the end of the day because they were able to pull through when it mattered.
Yep, that is true. Well, feels good for our 3-0 predictions. Rude's already wrong, but Still a lot of series and still a lot of chance here for JDG to come back, because we saw them open up incredibly greatly. I mean, they come in, they take a couple of those objectives, they're winning fights. Peyz is, I think, very clearly showing that he's the better AD carry, already one game in on a lot of weird errors, and ended up stalling and wasting time for his team that I don't think EDG had, to play with.
That last fight where On just Valkyried into the middle of all JDG's front line, I was so shocked and paralyzed in fear that On had just cost his team the game. But look at the damage that he was outputting, and somehow On was able to mind control JDG long enough in that fight to turn attention to him and open up space for everyone else on EDG to carry and clean through the fight even after going down to Scout.
Sure, but he also was, I think, in the wrong place a lot of the times. When you looked at his resets, they weren't on time for that topside grubs. They lose the first dragon because he's not able to rotate in time. So if EDG want to continue in this series, an early adaptation we're going to have to see from him and the coaching staff is we have to be a lot more diligent and understanding of when and where we have to be on the map, because you can't get to everywhere instantaneously unless you're a soul laner or you're a support with unsealed spellbook and you got access to a nice clean teleport.
It's funny how the highlights start at the beginning of the downfall of JDG instead of looking at the parts where they were doing well in the first 15-20 minutes.
Here's Xiaoxu. That was his first mistake, right? Ulting through the pit, tries to section out Xiaohao. They end up not getting it. Shen does miss out on the smite. This is the first big mistake I think we've seen from Xiaoxu here in this series. This is a good setup here. Hiding the public execution indicator underneath terrain, I think, was very cutesy. And still a good fight for JDG towards the end here. But surprisingly enough, Raafaa, it wasn't Scout really who I think let me down in this game. It really was Xiaoxu. Like, again, here, this one too.
Scout was doing the best that he could given what his job was in this game. He was able to get into the back line. Most of the time, he found at least one kill to trade before he ended up going down or managed to escape. He wasn't able to participate in the fight later on, but it was all to create space for Peyz. But because in this moment specifically, Peyz gets caught out early, well, there's no point for Scout to go into the back line. The fight is already lost.
Okay. This is a good buffer coming in from ZDZ. Just, I don't know. I see this team from JDG, and we look at the names. We look at how they've been playing throughout the year. We shouldn't be expecting them, even with all the downsides that we've seen, for them to be struggling against EDG. But I think Edward Gaming have made it incredibly clear throughout all this year's play. You look at their performance in Split 2, dominating Group Nirvana. Same thing here this time around. Although they do end in second place, EDG very clearly showed that they're not Group Nirvana, but we don't know exactly where we would slot this team, because it seems like the top two have been able to take, WE and FPX, but can they get to that next spot, that next level here in Group Ascend?
And a majority of the players here on EDG haven't seen any title success, not that many high playoff final placings in the past. The highest accolade is Angel making it to World Finals with Suning Gaming back in 2020 against Damwon. Everyone else has not really reached those same heights, whereas when you look at JDG, pretty much everyone outside of Xiaoxu has done something significant on the international stage. Scout, world champion with EDG in 2021. You have Shun making world finals with BLG last year against T1. You have Peyz, an MSI champion with Gen G and making multiple internationals. He has not, up until this year, he has not missed a single international since he has been in Tier 1.
That's credit. That's amazing. We'll see who the MVP here coming on through is. I imagine it's probably going to be ZDZ for his performance here in this game, multiple times catching out Peyz.
Yep.
I think you could you could try to sell me on a Parukia MVP. I don't know if I'm buying, but I could see arguments.
DDZ or I guess it's the shockwaves. I guess it's the shockwaves because that delivers the damage, but there are other people delivering the shockwave making it happen. Just saying.
Mark, I think we got a read. I think we got a read to do here. I have no words. I have no words for this MVP vote. None that I can say on this broadcast anyway.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, gamers, that does close out Game 1 between JDG and EDG, but before we toss it over to break, we want to remind everyone, if you would like to support LPL English, consider becoming a Coffee member, because coffee is the best way to support the LPL English project, since the vast majority of your contributions will go directly to the show. A lot of the initial payments go into upgrading the broadcasts, but a huge bulk of it pays on-air talent and content creators. Subscribe to our Coffee linked in the chat below to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews. Game 1 is in the books, y'all. We'll see you on the other side for Game 2.